Hey guys, it's ViewMasters Reactions. If you don't want to hear any spoilers, then go watch it. I highly recommend it. Even if you rush right into the spoilers and haven't seen it yet, I still recommend you go watch it because it is that good. And me explaining it in the spoilers is still not going to do it justice. You need to see some of these things because you need to hear them and you need to see them to understand fully what I'm talking about. This is the spoilers. So here we go. Last warning. So, in the spoilers, there is a cameo, like maybe a little more than halfway through this movie. Basically, to get up to it, they're both best friends since they're little kids. You end up finding out later on in the movie, I'm just going to sum it all up quickly, but you end up finding out much, much later in the movie that she has actually had a crush on him her whole life. She is like in love with him since they were little kids. She has wanted to be with him forever. And you could see he felt the same way about her ever since they were kids. Neither of them had the guts to tell the other. So they basically did what a lot of people probably do and zipped their mouth and just stayed friends. And then at one point, like right before they're going to college, they end up sleeping together. And it's right after his mom died and he's in a bad place. And they have a bad argument in the Burger King. And they basically stop talking for 16 years. Now it goes 16 years later. He is living with his father and basically is like a bum. He smokes weed and he plays in the same band he has for 16 years and he helps his father with his company. But apparently they don't make a whole lot of money because even with him living with his father, he still drives the exact same car they had 16 years ago when he banged her, which he banged her in. And he has like nothing to show for himself. They seem to be living very poorly, him and his father. They don't have a whole lot at all. And they seem to be like just barely getting by. Whereas she is engaged to Jin from Lost, who is in his 50s, they say. And he is like a restaurateur and basically what it looks like worth hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars. She is a super famous culinary like chef type person. She like redesigns restaurants. She's basically very well balanced in the restaurant world. She's building and setting up her own restaurants all over the country, maybe even the world. And she is phenomenal. She is very well educated and she is on top of the world and very, very rich and very, very well known. At one point, they call her the Oprah of the Asian world or something like that. Very, very well off. Her fiance, who is obviously a player, decides, hey, right before we get married, let's go and take 6 months. We'll have a break. We'll see other people. And like that way we'll be like fully into the marriage thing. Totally ridiculous statement. Obviously he's wanting to be selfish and wants to go out and hook up with other people. And he is freaking out. And I don't know if his intentions were to really get back with her after the 6 months, but I doubt highly that was the case. You could see she is highly against it. And then they meet back up. She gets a house back in town and she goes and sees one of his concerts, and this is where we see Hello Peril for the first time. Hello Peril is absolutely amazing. I was so into all their songs that after it was over, I actually downloaded it and put it on my phone so I could listen to it in my car. Every song they have is amazing, and each song furthers the plot. Like the very first song is like Hello Peril. It's explaining who they are, what their music's about. Very well done, very clever song. Randall Parks is a phenomenal rapper and is very good at it. So that is amazing how it actually like basically without having to explain who they are as a band, the song does it for you in amazing fashion. Really impressed with that. All the band members are hilarious. The Asian girl, I can't remember her name. Everything I've seen her in, she is that super awkward character and she plays it very well. She's in a bunch of movies, but she's always kind of like the side character. Then you had the Indian guy from Deadpool, who's been popping up in a lot of stuff. I just saw him in the Pokemon movie. He is also in this as the band member. He is amazing too. He always hilarious, really like him. He's got like a very like dry humor to him, but I absolutely love him. The other guy, Quasar was his name. I don't remember him from anything, but he was very hilarious in his own way. Very weird, but he was the merch guy, making a big deal out of selling 7 shirts. Very wacky dude. And then he tells him how he made like 1,000 tennis balls with their names on it, but their band has nothing to do with tennis balls. So what ends up happening later on in the movie, he writes a song that relates to tennis balls, and that's another really well-made song. Very catchy. I really dug it. Everything was well made, and now it furthers the plot and actually connects the tennis balls, and now they can sell them and make money off of the song. So Very funny how it's done. Shortly thereafter, she meets up with a celebrity. We end up finding out that celebrity is Keanu Reeves playing himself, but he is so eccentrically insane. It is absolutely amazing. He intentionally is being extremely over the top. A lot of the movie makes fun of like the hipster world of like everything being like trendy, like artisan roast beef sandwiches, freeze dried seaweed and kale, and it costs like $1,000. Extremely ridiculous artsy world, but it's San Francisco where it takes place. I've never been there except when I was like 5 years old. But from what I'm told, it is extremely artsy. Basically, that's what this movie is surrounded by. She ends up dating Keanu Reeves. They go on like maybe 2 dates. And then they all end up going back to Keanu Reeves' house where he ends up losing his shit. Randall Parks gets jealous. And long story short, he ends up punching Keanu Reeves in the face. And Keanu Reeves like throws him out of the house. Keanu Reeves and her end up breaking up. And this whole time, he has had a girlfriend as well, and she ends up leaving him for Keanu Reeves. Now, I might be skipping some things. I'm just trying to sum up what I thought was the funniest parts. So they end up getting an Uber home. They end up going back to her house. And previously, she had admitted at the party where they were with Keanu Reeves that she has loved him this whole time, which is what I said earlier. So they end up going back to her house. They end up banging, and they end up being like, hey, I've liked you just as much as you liked me. Why don't we make this a thing? And they immediately start dating. She starts going to all his band concerts, and he starts supporting her and what she does. But then lo and behold, her time is coming up where she must go back to New York. But he's like, I'm not leaving my dad behind because he has nobody. And he's basically like leaning on the fact that he's his dad's caregiver. You end up finding out that his dad has started dating a Diana Ross lookalike, and basically is like, don't use me as an excuse, get the hell out of here. He feels lesser than everyone else because she's like on a very high pedestal, makes a ton of money, very, very well known, and he's like a nobody. They end up going to a red carpet event, and she's like, yeah, that's just the ordinary guy I'm dating. But I do really believe that she meant it in a nice way. Like, yeah, he's not involved in the bullshit like she explains, but he is offended by it. They end up butting heads. He says, I'm not going to New York. You're staying here. She's like, no, I'm not. I'm going to New York. You don't need to be with your dad. They end up having a huge falling out, and they split up. They don't speak for what seems like months. And he is trying to get a hold of her. She's ignoring him. His band starts taking off. They're like, oh, merchandise is going through the roof. He realizes, I made a mistake. He goes to New York, ends up finding out that she's the one buying all his band's merch, which is what skyrocketed the sales. But she was doing it because she loved him. I love you. I support you. They both support each other. And then she shows him in the months that were going on when they weren't speaking, she actually created like a small little authentic restaurant because he kept ragging on her how she was going with what's popular and trendy and the rich people like, and kept saying, why don't you make something real and authentic? Well, she ends up doing it. She creates a restaurant based off of all the recipes of his mother that died when he was a little kid, and basically what resulted in them not speaking for 16 months because he was in a bad place. And she names the restaurant after his mother with all of her recipes in the menu. Very, very cool. Didn't see it coming. It was a nice little twist at the end that she really was thinking about him that whole time, buying all his merch, creating this restaurant in honor of his mother and her recipes. And then basically his band does sort of take off. He starts building. He's going to bigger venues. And the movie kind of ends. So then, like, at the end, she makes a comment about how he punched Keanu Reeves, because at that one point at the party, he does. And then at the end, during the credits, they play a song called I Punched Keanu Reeves. Probably the best of the three. Amazing song, very good way to roll the credits. And the song itself had many references to Keanu Reeves movies. I highly recommend, if you don't watch the movie, that you go listen to the song I Punched Keanu Reeves. Really well done, and has shout outs to many movies he was in. You really need to listen to it. I listened to it like 4 or 5 times already, and each time I find a different reference to a movie. There's like Point Break, Matrix, John Wick, Speed, just to name a few. I'm pretty sure there's a couple more at least. Definitely awesome stuff. There's other stuff that happened too that I missed. At one point, his crazy girlfriend makes them dinner, and she mixes together what looks like rice and noodles with like Vienna sausages. Absolutely hilarious. The faces he makes when he's like spitting up the Vienna sausage and stuff, and she keeps going like, oh, have another, and like force feeding him, and he's like spitting it up and everything. Oh, it's utterly hilarious. Then there's another scene. At one point, Keanu Reeves tells him that he had his suit made from a guy named Tom Ford, custom made. So he's like going to try to win her back. And he's like, I'm going to Tom Ford and I'm getting a suit. So he busts in and like mouths off to the guy. He's like, listen, bitch, you get me some champagne and we're going to make me this suit. And I was sent by my friend Keanu Reeves. I punched him in the face and blah, blah, blah. And he's mouthing off. And then they like start tailoring the suit and they pull the tag off and he sees 12 grand. He immediately spits up all the champagne against the wall. And he's like, take it off. Take it off. It's starting to burn. And it's absolutely hilarious scene. That was great. Also involving Keanu Reeves, there's a point where they're at a restaurant having dinner and he tells them that there is this new thing where you listen to the sound of the animal while you're eating it. I forget what they're eating. It's probably not steak, but whatever the animal was they were eating, you hear the animal while you're eating it. And Keanu Reeves like leans back and like belts out a cry and he's like, I'm sorry. And then immediately goes back down and starts eating. Meanwhile, she has not a care in the world. It's like, I'll listen to it and just going to town eating it. It is absolutely hilarious scene. But there are many, many memorable scenes in this. I was really blown away by how good this was. I highly recommend it to people, whether you like rom-coms, whether you just like clever comedies, whether you like music. There is so much good music in this. The humor, the clever, everything was just great. I was very pleased with this movie. One of the better ones I've seen on Netflix in a while. I highly recommend you guys watch it. You let me know what you guys think. Comments down below, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.